Tony, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. So Tony and I worked together at Sky, and I knew of Tony before he knew of me, because Tony's boss, Dario, he was raving about Tony before Tony ever started. Straight, honestly, from the interviews, from everything, he was like, Tony is amazing. And when Tony joined, he did not disappoint. He did not disappoint at all. So yeah, really looking forward to this conversation. So I would love for you to explain and let us know a bit more about your career journey.
Well, thank you for such a kind introduction. I'm not sure I've earned all of it, but I appreciate it anyway. God, where to begin? Such a long and winded journey now. I've always loved mathematics since school. I've just been one of those kids that was just kind of like lucky with it. I spent my summer holidays getting my older sister Zoe. She's like the genius of the family. She would write me math sums, and I would sit there working them out. It's from like the age of 6. I used to love it. I also had this little game where I wrote down all of the fixtures from the Premier League, and I'd roll a couple of dice and do the scores, and then I'd calculate all of the tables and the thing there. So always had an affinity with numbers, which led me to go work in Barclays Bank. I worked there from the age of 19 for about 4 or 5 years, I think. And yeah, in the end, it was really that's not really numbers. The computers do all of the hard work for you. It's just more processing money that's not yours, which gets a bit tedious after a little while.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. So I actually went back to uni to try and get a qualification. Was really lucky. I got in touch with a chap called Martin Lavelle at Plymouth University, and he helped me get a roadmap to get in a degree as a mature student. So I did an access course at the local college. Randomly, it was in psychology and biology. So I think it's weird that I had to do that, but it was part of like to prove that I had the academic sort of acumen to then go up and do a foundation year and a degree. But it was good because, that psychology I did at A level as well. It's really, really helpful in understanding, social and what have you. But Martin Lavelle is actually one of the lecturers I would then go on to have during my degree. And I think he was sort of the first person that gave me that kind of reality check of you got to work hard for these things. They don't just come. Like he's a great guy. Like I look back now and wish I had told him a little bit more about how influential and his support was, because he gave you support, but he gave it the hard way. He made you sort of like realize that you're the only one that's going to sort it out. Like I can sit here and I can tell you where you went wrong. I can sit here and give you advice, but if you don't sort of step up and do it yourself. I actually failed his advanced calculus in year 2 and had to repeat a whole year just for one module. But it was good for me. It really sort of made me want it even more just before my final year. And when I finally got across that finish line, it's just this victory was even sweeter. And that lecturer Martin, he's a pure genius, one of the top physicists. He would be able to solve 2 like quadratic equations on the board, jumping from one to the other, explaining what he's doing in both, and really, really good. So I think I learned at that point that people have different styles of leading you, but if you can respect how they've got to where they are, and you can see sort of their journey and they're open to showing you that, then I don't mind hard leadership sometimes. He's very celebratory and positive in terms of achievement. So he gives you the other side of it, but he wants it to be something that you value. So, and I think that was a really good thing to have learnt during that degree. And then off the back of there, I was lucky enough. I played 5-a-side football back in Barnstable in Devon, my hometown. And a mate there, a chap called Dan Ward, you should get in touch with him on LinkedIn. He's great. He's now a performance coach, I think, for the same company. But he gave me my first break. He was covering maternity cover as the analytics manager at pretty much the only one of 2 analytics companies in Devon, in North Devon. So there wasn't loads of opportunity, but I was lucky enough to have. And that's one bit of advice I'd probably give everyone You know, it's the old it's not what you know, it's who you know kind of thing. You know,
Mm.
networking and building connections and being open to understanding different people's experiences and stuff like that is huge to get there. And this was from five-a-side football. You know, we played five-a-side football, friends of friends, and got that job there. About a year after that, again, I think I mentioned before, like, you know, when I'm inherited by managers, it doesn't quite feel the same as when I'm sort of selected by a manager. I think it just didn't work out there in that setup. So that was a point, big change in my life. Decided to come down to London, and a chap called Akeno Izo, who's I call him the analytics guru. He is the guy that I'd always go to. You know, absolutely always go to. He's gone on to AWS and then Google now, and he's leading some of the AI stuff there. He gave me that chance at Visit Britain, which is the British Tourist Association, and we worked together there.
Sorry, what made you decide to come to London?
Purely that about opportunity. Like, I'd gone through those 6 years of being a delivery driver. I was a Domino's delivery driver. So I'd left Barclays Bank. I was a Domino's delivery driver, driving 2 hours in the morning. I'd used to set off at like 4 in the morning, 2 hour drive to get down to uni, do a full day study, and then drive back and start my shift as a delivery driver, finish at midnight, get some sleep, and then start the next day. So yes, and I had one of those timetables that never let up in the third year. Everyone was saying, "Don't worry, the third year will be so much easier. It's hardly any lessons to go." No, I just kept spreading it out over the whole week. So, but yeah, and so I put all of that effort in, and I felt really proud of coming out with the result that I did. And yeah, I think because it hadn't necessarily worked with the other manager at that place in where I was working, there wasn't loads of other opportunities, so it was kind of open yourself up to something different, or don't, or stay where you are. And yeah, I had a few interviews down here and ended up working with the companies that I went for the other interviews with, like as working for VB. So again, it's networking, you know, just putting yourself out there for those interviews. You know, the sort of corporate world, the data world, whichever you want to look at it, you know, it's smaller than you think sometimes. And these people that you sort of meet in these interviews, you can cross paths later down the line. And there's been plenty of people that I've done that with. So yeah, anyway, so that was basically the main thing about London. Did I want to do something in it? I didn't have anywhere to live at the start. I was reliant on the kindness of friends, sofa surfing, dodgy hotels. You know, the ones that they say 4-star on the banner, but it's anything but on the inside. So yeah, that was the first year down here. That was tough. But no, and then luckily I had a really good mate that came back to the UK at the time that worked out, and we moved in together, and that was it. You know, from there I took over as head of global data and analytics after Akeno left. He recommended me for the role. I covered it for a year before they found a permanent replacement. I was only supposed to cover it for 3 months, but they're like, "Oh, okay, you're doing all right. Let's just keep it going." But yeah, and then that whole role came to a head at a good point. We left in good terms. I did a campaign there that sort of I produced something out of the situation that made me realize what it was that I wanted from the next step in my career. I wanted to really make a difference. I really wanted to use data, everything that I'd learned from my journey, going through. And I love looking at spreadsheets. My mates will laugh at me. I do one for any trip that we go on, a stag do. I've got a spreadsheet for it. Anything that we're doing, fantasy football. I swear on fantasy football, if anybody looks at the fixture difficulty rating, I invented that. That got stolen off of me. Not really, because mine's nowhere near as sophisticated as that. But I was using that a few years ago. I actually finished 550 out of like 2.6 million, so I think it was working quite well. And then everybody else got it, and I can't do it now. Yeah, now I finished like down in the middle of the pack. So yeah. I think that's a personal vendetta from the Fantasy Premier League. But yeah, I've always liked dealing with data, big data sets. The more the merrier. People look at me weird when I say sometimes I feel like the data sort of talks to you, like it draws you in to where there's like an anomaly. Yeah, the data whisperer. Yeah, so I've always really enjoyed that. And then I think it was the pure fluke of having that psychology as part of the Access course, and realizing just how much statistics there is in psychology. It's not, it's not some sort of pseudoscience. It's not some sort of make believe of the mind or what have you. These are really sophisticated studies where they put a lot of data into them, and then you realize kind of that all data is just human behavior, and one and the same. If you learn how to interpret one and how to sort of fix problems with one, you can actually use that to do the same for human beings, like, bring that into the real world. And actually, mathematics wasn't invented by humans, it was just discovered by humans. It's been in the world ever since it began. The things in nature that relate to what things that humans have created, and it goes on and on. So yeah, I wanted to do something where I knew I could make a valuable difference, both to the people that I worked with and to the products as well. I also struggle that people, I think, need to connect the dots between, yes, okay, we want to be, respected as workers and treated well as workers, but also we're there to do a job. So there's a kind of like you need to accept some level of inevitability on what work is, and realize that. I think my dad, he's got loads of sayings and loads of terrible jokes, but the sayings that he sort of instilled in me when we were younger is things like, we work to live, we don't live to work. If you're not happy in your job, people can spend years arguing against the tide, like swimming against the tide, trying to make a change. And yes, rightfully so. Like, sometimes these things are about making change and standing up for that. But also sometimes it's about, well, there's a contract with a description, and that's what it is. And if it's something that's in there that you don't like, then just consider just moving on for your own sake. You'll save so much time in your life, and you might find that next job that really shows you progression. I know we're talking, I won't go into detail on it, but we're talking about the situation with the job I had before Sky. In between the two, it just became obvious that there was a difference of fit. It doesn't have to be personal. You don't have to get upset about it. You just sort of deal with the facts and walk on. But I think that we could do a lot more to make, particularly the data world, we could do a lot more in the data world, I think, to humanize what it is that we do and how we treat the people that are creating the data. I think there's a lot of work to be done there. I think that because a lot of the world of data is very kind of focused in on, we all learn like glued to our screens, typing away till our fingernails are falling off, like just coding and what have you. And you can't help it, because if you pass one bit of code to another, it's like a different language, like if you're reading someone else's code and stuff like that. So I think that to get where we need to get to in the data world, we're kind of forced into this reclusive, siloed kind of way of working. And what we need to do in organizations is then bring people back out of that and actually show them a clear pathway to say, like, oh, here's where we need your skills, but here's where we need your personality, here's where we need your passion, here's where we need your sort of energy to be focused in on. Because when people's energy is purely focused on BAU task, that's going to be burnout. That's going to be that point where they're just, why am I doing this? I'm just churn. And I think that's where sort of the role of manager, data engineering manager, I think I started with 17 direct reports. I think I'm still about 25, 26 at the moment.
Wow.
And it's a lot of people, but they're such a great team. And I think that any manager is only as good as the best they can get out of their team. And the team is excellent. I as you said, some very nice intros about me at the start of the thing. It's impossible not to credit them with that. They support each other. They pull in together when there's times are hard. They are there for each other, both socially and in the workplace. And all I'm trying to do is sort of be part of their team. It's not me coming in and telling them how to live their lives. It's me coming in and telling them that it's okay to live their lives. And giving them that sort of safe space to actually be creative and experimental. So much of the stuff that I worked on getting out of the way is just conversation, just communication, like saying to other people, like, no, you can't just say, it's not my problem. It's not your problem, so you need to pass it on, but you need to pass it on with purpose and intent and to help people. So someone comes to you and says, how do I do this? And you don't know, but you might know someone who might know something. Pass them on, give them the introduction. Do it. Don't say to them, there's a name here, I've just plucked out the air, go find them. Do an introduction for them. Be kinder to each other. Yeah, be kinder to each other all the way through. and I hope that's the kind of environment that I'm creating for the team. But like I say, it's as much on them. They are bringing suggestions to me too, and I always want to sort of be listening as a manager and learning myself as to how I can be better and how I can be more productive for the team. My job is to make sure that they are free to be the best that they can be, and I can only do that by bouncing off of them.
And how are you managing to maintain and grow your culture while your team is scaling up? Because often the more people that are getting involved in something, the easier it is for that culture to get diluted.
Yeah, I think that is difficult, and I'm constantly trying to listen and adapt. So I came up with in this current role some improvement groups that have got like self-volunteered people sort of motivated to make some fundamental changes to processes, documentation, and that sort of stuff. And I came up with one design, but now I'm getting some feedback. We're adapting, we're pivoting. We're willing to live in that sort of test and learn culture. And do you know what? Through that, I've stumbled across some really exceptional leaders just in those improvement groups, and all they were trying to do is to give a positive input. I don't think they necessarily realized at the time that what they've shown is exceptional leadership skills. So I designed each group to have I think anywhere between 5 and 15, I think, volunteers, but each one of those had people that self-selected to be a leader within those groups as well. So using those groups to give people the opportunity to embrace that personal development, repurposing. I think this is one thing that's costing companies millions. Business problems are also personal development opportunities. Trust your employees. Trust your employees to fix things. Trust their thoughts. They're hired to do a job that you cannot do yourself in the SLT. You cannot do it yourself, so distant from the work that actually gets on and gets done. So I think that's a big one is what is this magic word trust that senior teams talk about. Trust is in the everyday actions. It's not in a document, it's not in a news update or a town hall or something like that. Trust is in the actions of what you ask your people to do and what you allow them to the freedom to get on and do with it. So I think that I've always with that my team, I wouldn't dare try and sort of be an expert in any of my my direct reports subject matter areas. You know what I mean? They'll just embarrass me probably. It's about trusting that I trust them, that they're my experts. Absolutely, whatever they say goes from a technical aspect for me, and then in return from that, what I hope that they trust me with is connecting the dots and removing the blockers. They trust me to be there to support them and also to connect them to the top. It's not. I'm not in. I'm not like in charge of the team as such. My role is within the team, and that's, I think, hopefully what makes a bit of a difference.
That makes sense. And I love the improvement groups idea. One of the things that you mentioned that I wanted to go back to was you mentioned about your dad. So I'd love to know a bit more about your dad. Like, what did he do? Who was he? Because it sounds like he's had a massive impact in terms of your mindset in approaching like life and even leadership.
He's gonna love this. He's gonna absolutely love this. I'm gonna play this video back to him, and he's gonna love it. No, he's rubbish. No good advice from him. Dad's it's been a great role model throughout life. I was raised luckily with abundance of love from my mum and dad. A very, very loving family, and I think that's given me that extra sort of security to grow in confidence. I wasn't confident as a kid. I was bullied sometimes, and had not the nicest experiences throughout my whole childhood. And I just think that they always made me feel like it'd be okay. But Dad would. So Dad's ex-army man. He left the army after, I think, about 12 years, just before I was born. So he kind of did have that military regime kind of sort of sense to it. But so like he had this thing on the weekends where I'm up, everyone's up, and he just sort of got that in you. Like, yeah, it just made sure we didn't waste away our time too much. And he had that, but he was always sort of like lighthearted with it. And If you stayed in bed after like the first or second warning, you'd come in with a wet flannel, bang, right on your face. That's it. You're up. Come on, let's get going.
Yeah.
But he just rolls with it. He's got a calmness to life where he just makes you feel reassured that it'll be okay. Like you could end up with nothing, but you'll still be okay. As long as you got each other, as long as you take care of the people that count. And it transfers into workplace as well. My team are my family at work, and whatever they need, I'm here to do whatever I can to make that easier for them. And then I want to even transfer that another layer to the customers that you serve and the people that you interact with, stakeholders and stuff like that. Everybody is just trying to get by. So dad's saying on that one, we work to live, we don't live to work. Like everyone's here because you just want to get by. We want to continue doing what it is we're doing in life, and this job is the way that we go about doing that. So let's all drop the stress and just realize that if all of us would be on a beach somewhere sipping a cocktail, doing whatever we want to do, and that's the truth of the matter. We're all here because we need to work to live. So let's make that a little bit easier on each other and make work a little bit about living. It's not about just process. Like, and if the senior leadership team gets freaked out by that, by saying let people just be a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more fun, it's like, give it a chance. Trust me, give it a chance. And the right people with the right attitude will shine in that situation, and you'll get far more out of them with that freedom than pigeonholing in 3 times as many people into a fixed structure. It's better to lose the people that either take that situation, take liberties with it, or people that just don't thrive in there. It's okay for them to move on and find their place in another company that is run differently. But like, I think that the most value that you can get out of a team is when you give them that freedom, that safe space, to be able to do that. I don't think that. I think it's an old school mindset to think, giving people more freedom means they're going to be lazy. I think like this whole, return to office versus work from home sort of stuff and what have you. The right people are going to be immensely better working from home, and the other right people are going to be immensely better working in the office. It's not a one size fits all sort of situation. No. We need to understand, what are they doing? You drag somebody into the office and they don't speak to anybody. They got calls online with people that are overseas or this, that, and the other. What is it you think you're getting out of that situation? Yeah. Just a number on the seat. Yeah. Where's the tangible benefit in that? But don't get me wrong. I fully support office. I think that there's so much creativity and so much opportunity for socializing, which is fundamental. If you don't encourage your teams to socialize, then I think you're doing a real disservice to your team. It's more important than drilling them on their BAU or focusing too much on deadlines. I don't want to badger my team about deadlines. I want to trust them. Again, what does that word trust mean? Trust them that there's 2 things I care about: attend your meetings and meet your deadlines. Other than that, I don't. The other rules are, they're there. We know they're there. Don't mess about. Do what you want. It's a bit more liberal with it.
I think that thing around trust is so important, because I feel like the old school way says that people don't really want to work, that people are trying to shirk off. But I feel like what's coming through now a lot more is that recognition of like, I want to be good at my job. You want to be good at your job. I feel like often when people aren't good at their jobs, it's either because it's a bad fit or because they don't actually know how to be good at their jobs. And that's our job as leadership, is to show people the way that you can be more relaxed and have some kind of balance between, are you working all the time, or are you resting? Are you getting your time? And you can still perform really, really highly. And that's our job as leadership, is to create an environment of trust where people are empowered to go and do their best work, to go and perform at really high levels, but it's not because we're killing them on the back end of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we're saying it beforehand, and it seems too simple. It seems so simple that the answer is kindness. It seems so simple that could be what it all comes down to. All of the unfairly induced anxiety and pressure and stress of the workplace, and these opinions that you need to lead with, like
an iron fist,
fire and like, it's like, an iron fist. It's like, imagine if the remedy is literally just don't be horrible to someone. Think about what it was like for you and the role you had before this one and the role before that. Like, if that's the answer, then you got to hold people up accountable. And do you know what?
Yes.
I think that it comes back again, and I know I bang on about this too much, but the individual contributor versus the manager situation. You take a team of people, you look at the best person in there, so the person that can do the best value product that you can create, and you stifle them by promoting them to a managerial role where they are just then bound by people skills that they don't have. They can learn some of them, but that's a small percentage of people that can actually make that transition. They just are bound by that manager. So you've lost your best person in the team, and now they can't manage the rest of the team. So the rest of the team are feeling disillusioned, disconnected from everything that's going on, and you've lost your high quality products. And I think that sums up a lot of problems with organizations and why they think they need org restructure. They don't. They need to take their best person in the team, make them a lead, which is the same level as a manager, but without the people responsibilities. They take on the technical, and the people manager is there to mentor the others to go one way or the other. Either mentor the others to become new managers or mentor the others to become new leads. And it makes it much clearer then. Everybody in the team then feels like they have a choice. They have a choice in their career direction, even if they stay at Sky. It's quite simple then. You're putting the power back into them, and genuinely it is their choice. I give them advice and guidance on what qualities I think I've spotted in them, where I think they should pursue individual contributor routes, or whether, think about individual contributors as well. There is no ceiling to that as well, because you're probably the entrepreneurs. You're probably the people that will break out of this and go off and do something completely different. And that's fine as well. Companies need to be comfortable with that. I think it was a cheesy quote from Richard Branson or something, treat them well enough to stay, train them well enough to leave, something like that. I mean, it's a very powerful thing when you think about it. Like, if all you need to do is give people what they're asking for. Everyone's asking for training, development, this, that, and the other. It gives you better products. Give that time from your capex spends to product development, to personal development. It's one of those things where when we buy a product from Apple, we don't dictate how that money for the product is going to be split down, and how it's done, this, that, and the other. If we get a customer's budget and what we can do can tangibly improve the output that we give them, either add value or create extra efficiency, more speed, something like that, then that's part of the product price. And so therefore we need to be much more proactive in saying to people, right, on your backlog, you need an hour's training this week. You need 2-hour session for X, Y, or Z personal development. You need to put that on your backlog so you know how to fit it into your protected time, so that you know that you have the right to be developed and to choose your development or what have you.
I think what you said about the way I took it was almost like not holding people too loosely. Right. So knowing that at some point that person might leave and I might be developing them to leave, because one of my first head of departments, in one of our first meetings, he said, look, I know that you're not going to work for me forever. My job and my responsibility to you is to make sure that you go into your next role as ready as possible. And that always stuck with me, because it's quite like a wild thing to say, because often you think about, well, this person should be staying with the company and they should be doing this and they should be doing that. But he was basically saying, look, even if your next role is somewhere else, my responsibility to you is to make you ready for that next role. And I think if we hold people a little bit more loosely in that way, like I'm not just trying to keep them here, because sometimes that's not actually going to be the best thing for them. So like when I left my old role, 3 different people got promoted because that space was made. So actually it was good for everybody, right? That I actually moved out of the team into another role. So if we just try and keep people, we keep people stagnant, and that's not okay either. We've got to hold people loosely.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely spot on, and it makes me sort of recall the analogy of like running a football team, right? You got striker that's just come in, scoring loads of goals. You develop them, they become super striker, and then they're going to move on. You need the next person to be being trained up behind them. You need the person that's going to come out. I can't sort of look at, say, one of my most senior members, and if they wanted to move on, I'd be really happy for them, really proud of them that they're taking the next step and what have you. And I'm ready with a list of people that I know deserve promotions already. So, I'm not going to have a problem backfilling that gap from them. And I wish them all the best. And, I'll give them glowing reference, because, I think that where is the crime in that these days? Long dead the loyalty of employment, from both sides, from both sides as well. The company, if they need to get rid of you, will get rid of you. At the same time, you should be looking that. Yeah. Sorry, mate, but raw on the bone. But it's a two-way street that
Absolutely.
you can easily move on as well. And I think as an employee, you should feel empowered to do so. It's not robbing one company if you do training whilst you're with them and then you decide to leave. I mean, I know some companies that will then charge you back for any training that they've credited you or anything like that. But I think that's just bitter of a company, really, because I don't think anybody really has the intention to join another company to steal some free training to move on to another company, right?
No,
when we're doing that training in that company,
rare.
we want to be better. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no doubt somebody will always try to swindle in any process, but in general, people are doing that training because they want to be better individuals, and currently they're at your company, so train them.
And I was talking to this guy, so he recently got made redundant, and he started a podcast called I Got Fired Last Week. And so we were talking about this weird balance, right, that you have to have between I absolutely love my job, love my company, but I also have to understand that, look, this is a business at the end of the day. Sometimes business decisions are going to be made and it's not going to go my way, right? Because he was talking about how, when you get made redundant, for example, it's like the breaking of a relationship, and it feels like your girlfriend doesn't want you anymore or whatever it is, but it's kind of like you also have to understand that there is a business side to it. And absolutely, I'm committed, absolutely, I love my job, but if at the end of the day you turn around tomorrow and say to me, look, we can't afford to keep you, that's also okay. I know it's hurtful, I know it can make people bitter and a bit angry, but like that's kind of what it is in a business at the end of the day. And we have to be able to strike that balance between being comfortable to commit. Yeah, I'm committing to you, right? But it's a business at the end of the day. So sometimes you're not going to be able to pay me what I want you to pay me. So I'm going to go. Or you're not going to be able to afford to keep me, so I'm going to go. So it's just this really interesting balance with what you're talking about in terms of sometimes you're going to let go.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think if we all get to a place where you can be, particularly if you're the one on the unfair side of that decision or anything like that, if you can be that sort of pragmatic about it and just sort of, like I said earlier, about accepting inevitability to a certain extent with careers. You can't just walk into work and say, like, I want to get paid lots of money for doing exactly what I want to do, the exact way I want to do it, when I want to do it. Like, that's just that job doesn't exist. And if it does, give me a shout, I'll get my CV straight in for it, but it just doesn't exist.
No.
There's a huge amount of compromise, as you do the analogy with relationships and stuff like that. Compromise, understanding the benefits of the differences rather than the conflict of the differences.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think it's quite underrated.
I've spoken to so many people who have been made redundant, and every single one of them has turned around and said, you know what, it sucked at the time, but it turned into something amazing. It gave me my next opportunity. It gave me this. Like, so many people have been through that, and so many people have come out the other side and said, you know what, it was actually okay. So I think it's just something to consider, especially like now, like people getting laid off left, right, and center, getting made redundant. So it's like you definitely have to almost like prepare yourself for the fact that could happen, and if that does happen, how am I going to respond? One thing I wanted to ask you was, what does emotional intelligence mean to you?
I think it kind of represents a lot of things to me. I could be quite cynical about some things. Labeling theory is something that I just discovered during psychological studies, and so labeling theory, where sort of you give a name to something and it becomes something. So emotional intelligence, I get it. I understand. Yeah, emotional intelligence is a label that they've given to something that I just think is kindness. Underneath all of it is such a simple human being, a human trait. It's as simple as that. So emotional intelligence means that not only, I guess what you said about kindness, not weakness. Emotional intelligence takes it from being able to understand how people are, all the different variations of personalities, how we all interact, the fact that those variations are there, even if you don't know how to empathize or sympathize with them entirely yourself, but to be aware that those differences exist, and that people have different tolerances to all sorts of different stress levels, to all sorts of different scenarios, and their reactions to those scenarios, they're always going to be unique. And to have the ability to still make progress whilst caring about all of that, that's probably where business side of the phrase emotional intelligence comes in. You can still be productive whilst at the same time putting the care for people at the heart of what you do. I think that's probably emotional intelligence in the workplace.
I love that because I think, going back to what you said about kindness, it's almost like kindness to others, kindness to yourself. And sometimes I feel like we see kindness, like you were saying, as weakness, or like I have to be really, really nice. But sometimes being kind is holding someone accountable and saying, hey, look, if you keep doing this same thing that you're doing, that's not going to end well for you. And having a tough conversation with someone, which might not feel nice, but it's definitely the kind thing to do, because you're thinking about their future. You're thinking about how this ends up for them. So I really like what you said about, how do we deal with what's going on with the care for the person at the heart of it? Because inevitably, like, the more you care for the people, like, the better things are, the better your environment is. When an environment is better, people love to perform in a good environment. It's like, it all fulfills itself,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's like an inflection point where it's hard for maybe senior teams to believe that kindness can be the answer, because what they've got to do first is let there be a dip in productivity, let there be a dip in production, so that you can give people the chance to sort of adjust to a new way of being, realizing that those boundaries aren't there and that they are free to explore their own thoughts and to try new things, that and the other, and just sort of bearing with it whilst it goes through that inflection point. And then I promise you, the productivity that comes out the other side will make up for that dip entirely. Because otherwise what you're doing is you're chucking the organization around left, right and center, getting people lost, and then you're bringing in new people that you think, well, they did really well at this company and they're going to do really well at this company, and you're just throwing money after it. Like, to lose somebody and replace them is such a financial cost to the organization. If you can't do the emotional intelligence part of it, just do the ruthless financial part of it. Yeah, you let go of a person that you're paying a salary. Yeah, you get somebody else in that's probably going to try and negotiate a higher salary anyway. And then throughout all of that, you get this huge drop whilst they have to rebuild their knowledge. It doesn't matter what role they're in, what person they are. You always have a dip in your productivity when you first start a new role. Getting to know people, networking, understanding what's your responsibility, what's not. I
agree, because I feel like, especially as the society that we're in, you can get stuff instantly, right? Like, I break it, get a new one. I break it, get a new one. I feel like we're starting to apply that a bit to people, in terms of, well, I'll just get another one. Oh, Tony wants to leave, that's okay, I'll just get another one. But it's like, we don't see the real cost of actually doing that. And like you said, it costs so much, even just from the time that I used to spend having to interview people, right? That's time that I can't actually be productive in my job. And most of those people I'm not going to
absolutely
hire, right? Yeah. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more with you.
Exactly. So there's the burden on the manager, the hiring manager. There's the burden on the person that's got to onboard them, train them. It's not just one person that you're taking this dip for, but because it's individual dips, they don't notice it as much. But if you try and do a cultural change where you genuinely empower people to feel happy and safe and confident to be creative and what have you, that dip's too big. It's too noticeable, so they can't bear with it. They have to freak out and think that something's not working, or that this is counterintuitive. Like, production's going down, so obviously this new happy environment's not working. It's like, no, people are just trying to discover what it means to be happy at work. You know what I mean? It's going to take a little bit of time, but not very long. Once people get that taste for freedom and creativity, they're going to run with it, and they're going to be coming out of ideas that you can't keep up with as an organization.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more with that. I'd love to know how you grew in leadership. Like, did you have a mentor that put you on that path? Or was it something that you were always quite interested in from the psychology background? Like, what really was a catalyst for your growth?
I don't know, because at school I was was just a ginger masky, a bit on the bigger side and what have you. I wasn't very, I wasn't in any means a leader or anything as a child. I just kind of was more content in my own time, in my own space, and sort of was comfortable with that. But whereas sometimes people might think that maybe that makes me an introvert or what have you, I then also loved to get on stage and do drama. I was you wouldn't believe it, but I was loads of different stages, stage shows that I've done and what have you, and that was the confidence part. So I had this kind of contentness being on my own, but actually this enjoyment of being silly and acting like somebody, a different character, and learning something new, getting lost in this world of, and I think that's the creativity part of my brain. It's just sort of like loved that kind of getting lost there and what have you. So I don't know where from that confidence seems to be okay. That makes sense. That could lead to being a leader, but I didn't have that other element of, I had no desire to sort of be a leader of people or anything like that. Then when I started working at Barclays, I loved the I don't know, it's probably really old school now. This is like quite a few years back, but they had POD machine, proof of deposit machine, where you'd put the checks in, they'd run around, it'd take a screenshot and come up on the computer, and we had to manually update any sort of numbers or figures that were wrong. So it could be like a wrong account number, wrong amount, So these are the times where people were like, hey, I paid a check for 70 quid and I got 7,000, It was my job to then like reconcile at the end of the night and make sure everything was correct and do that. Off the back of that, I started training people with new systems at Barclays, even though people have been there a lot longer, and just sort of found a good way to explain it to different people, and that was like my first understanding of kind of that principle, that there's different ways to learn and there's different ways to teach. And then after a few situations at the bank, they needed somebody to step in and cover. You'll notice this theme throughout my history of a career is that I'm the one that they call when it's on fire, and then I'm not always the bridesmaid, never the bride, because I never like get there, on to the actual step. I'm just there to fight the fires when no one else is around. So I stepped in as counter manager, and so that was at 20, I think, and I was managing a team of about 20. Not managing so much, more like time managing, scheduling, that sort of stuff, making sure that we had the right sorts of orders and stuff. Did that for a little while as cover. That kind of gave me a taste for it because people really appreciated the things that I was doing. We had a lot of key timers and stuff, so I was sort of like changing. I managed to sort of kind of semi-automate in Excel a timetable that would fit people in based on their key time, and it made it so much easier for them to sort of like plan their week around certain things, and that kind of made me feel pretty good. Then when I was doing my access course, so when I went back to uni, I only knew that I wanted to progress. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know sort of where it was headed. I had so many ideas. Doing my access course, we did like a maths component, and maths, like I say, was just something I've always had an affinity with. Did the UK Maths Challenge and European Maths Challenge when I was a kid. Really enjoyed that. Like, it's super cool. But yeah, so I lost my focus then.
So you were talking about the course that you were doing at uni, and then you said about how you liked maths.
Sorry, yeah. So on that course there was, I think, about 15 of us doing the maths component. And the lecturer there was very adamant about his way of teaching and what have you, and the other students weren't coping too well. So subtly I started helping a couple of people here and there, and then by the end of it, he was comfortable with it. He was teaching one student and I was teaching like the other 12 or 13, like just them doing their own thing, but me going through one by one and actually just sort of like helping them to understand the things. And quite often the feedback was, oh, thanks, that's so much simpler now, that's so much easier now. Just trying to find what related that mathematical problem to their life, and how to make them understand it in a way that just made them feel empowered with mathematics, because it was an access course for all different levels. You're going on to do lots of different things. So you had people in there that were just purely terrified of maths, and this teacher couldn't see that. He couldn't see that there was, whilst we might all be mature students, there's vastly different levels of confidence and experience here with that sort of stuff. So that gave me another encouragement to do it. And then I think all the way through the degree, that kind of just kept getting reinforced, because know your skills and be confident about them. I guess that's one thing that I'd say to people. Know your strong points and be passionate about that. So when I went into doing a degree with all of these kids that had come through doing like regression and stuff like that in their GCSEs. Like that didn't exist in GCSEs when I was coming through. What are you on about? So these are like proper wizards by this point, and I'm like, I'm not going to keep up with them that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy favor with them by saying, I'll do all the presenting for you. Because that's what they all hate. That's what they all hate. Like, I don't want to get up in front of everyone and present. It's like, you chuck me in the middle, I'll go do it. I'll bash down doors for us. I'll get us around. I'll do this, that, and the other. And I didn't realize it at the time. I thought that was just kind of my way of accentuating my skills, so I didn't look so bad next to them or what have you. But I realized it was actually early leadership sort of development, where I knew how to get the best for my team. I knew that I could represent them better than they might be able to represent themselves, purely because. Yeah, I don't. Another lesson from my dad. Yeah, another lesson from my dad is that respect isn't commanded from a position; it's earned from a personality. So it's the way that you handle it. So
I love that.
It's absolutely. So what I say to everybody is, yeah, I get nerves, right? Let's not pretend that I'm not nervous when I go into a situation or something like that. But what's the worst that can happen? Like, this is just another human being. They're not looking to do me over because I had a suggestion, because I had an idea. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe they want to give me some critique or some feedback that I don't particularly want to hear. But that's the worst that can happen. It's not like you go in there saying, I think this is going to make something better, and they turn around and go, nope, you're fired. Like, it's like, it's not going to happen. So I'm willing to put my neck on the line in quite a lot of situations and do that for my team. And I think that's where it sort of came full circle. And maybe it's a little bit from dad as well. Like, like I say, that kind of military upbringing. Like, I like to try and get things organized, and I like systems to work. I really like systems to work. And I guess one thing I try to help everybody with in doing that is, another buzzword, but the imposter syndrome situation. Like, I think everybody needs to realize that when we sit here as managers and we say we all have it, we all have it. It's there. It's real. It is something that you shouldn't feel extra anxiety about being you. It's not personal. Yeah, everybody can have imposter syndrome at different points. You just need to try and get to that point of what is the reality of the situation. Once you're in that role, you've been chosen, okay? They've chosen you for whatever reasons that they've chosen you. Don't worry about it. You just do your best now. That's all you got to do. You ain't got to try and prove yourself to anybody. You proved yourself in the interview. We employed you for that, and a good manager will now just trust you to do what they employed you for. I don't employ everybody for the same technical acumen or for the same whatever acumen. It's about a balance at the time of what I need for the team. And I think that's sort of really important.
I think it's such an interesting one, and because I feel like, so when I became head of department, I was surrounded by people who were way more talented technically than I ever could be. Right. And then you almost have to realize, like, that's not what they brought me here. Like, I'm in this room for a reason. And even if I'm in this room by mistake, there's this like concept of everything is figure outable. Right. So, like, even if they totally hired the wrong person, there are things that I can bring to this situation because I can figure stuff out. And that's really what, for me, my confidence is in, is that, look, whatever happens, there's a way to figure it out. Like, there's always a way. If I ask enough questions, there is a way that I can figure out how to do well in this situation. Because often, maybe I'm not meant to be in that room. Do you know what I mean? Maybe I wasn't actually meant to be there.
Yeah.
That's okay. I can still do something. I can still add value.
I've definitely had a few situations like that before. I'm really going over my head here. Like, what was I here for? You're checking your notes. Like, I haven't got anything on this. What's going on?
Nothing.
But like you say, we just roll with it. We're confident enough to just roll with it and just sort of say, right, let me get an understanding of what's going on. Like, I'll either figure it out or I'll just point out that I'm not part of this,
I'm not the right
situation.
So,
but
do you know how many technical conversations I ended up in? Because people thought that because I was ahead of, I was like the deepest technical person. And sometimes I'm sat there like, I literally have no idea what this person is asking me. But I ask a few questions. I ask them to explain it to me like I'm 5. And then we get to something good. And that's really the skill. That's really the skill. It's not that I know everything.
Absolutely.
It's that I'll ask the questions,
In fact, it's being comfortable in the fact that you don't know everything. Like why would you want to employ someone to be a manager and then them to also be the SME? Like like they're managing people. They haven't got time to be your subject matter expert. Like I mean, they're managing the person that's doing that and connecting the strategy to the operation. Like that's a hell of a job in itself. That's what us managers are trying to do. Get the best of both of those and fit them together. I guess it's like that's the linchpin, like the pivot point, isn't it? Like if we can get those connected, we can't then also be the technical expert. It's a crazy idea. I had something else written down as well. Like skills can usually be taught. Like you say, like if you're a good problem solver, if you're good sort of thing, you don't need to learn a specific tool. You need to learn the concepts behind these things and where they sit. Skills, technical skills can be, technical. Yeah, I'm big on that. Like everything I learn the concept. Why? Why do I need to do that? Why is it doing that? Why is it giving that output? Why is it doing that? Ask why until you're blue in the face with whys. Like, it's crazy. But technical skills can be taught. People that get to the point where they're a data engineer, or a developer or something like that, they've already got it. They've already got enough technical skills that even if they're not using the tool that you're using right now, don't turn down their CV because they haven't got Adobe Analytics instead of Google Analytics or something like that. Like, these if this is a concept person, if they understand the concept, they'll transfer really quickly. One thing that is almost impossible and probably most often takes a lifetime to change is personality. It is just those sort of personal traits where you choose somebody because of their passions for why they do something. Choose them for how they talk about interacting with other people and their experiences. If their experiences are entirely siloed into what I did and what I achieved, what you're looking at there is a very strong individual contributor. Is that what you need for your role? If not, there should be a red flag straight away, even if they're coming up with the most mind-blowing technical stuff. If what you need is a manager, don't be hiring that person. Because as a manager, you need to genuinely enjoy vicariously other people's success. Like 100%. I think there's another thing that Akina taught me. Like, in the data world, you've got to love celebrating in the shadows. So, a lot of the work we do will not be, you pass it over to marketing, mate, and that's it. The marketeers, they're off with it, they're flying, they're getting the awards ceremonies with the crystal plaques and stuff like that. And us there in the data closet, with the mushrooms like growing old in the dark, that's sort of how it was positioned to me. And, I think that as a manager, if you can sort of genuinely look at the work that your direct reports to and not only be wowed and impressed yourself, but then, actually sort of enjoy their pride in what they've created for them, and their success off the back of it. I think that if you can't do that, if you can't see that, if that sounds silly to you or cheesy to you, I think that indicates that you're an individual contributor. Like, and that's not to say one can't be the other. I'm not saying it's a blanket one way or the other. I'm saying on average, most likely the large majority would benefit from individual contributors realizing that before they take the mistake of stepping into a managerial role.
I agree. And it's not to say that one is better than the other. It's just about what are you best suited to.
No.
That's literally what it is. Like what suits
honestly,
you,
if you get
your
both
desires
of those,
best.
If you get both of those career paths working in tandem in the same organization, then you're going to have an organization that does have really good data standards, really good processes in place, and is that company that we all expect we're going into when we join a new company, where data is going to be like this future AI high tech, it's all float. No, not at all. I think if an AI bot came in to try and do everything we do in data, it would just kind of explode on the spot. It'd just be like, no, 100%. Can't fix it. Job done.
100%.
I'm not worried about AI taking over. I'm worried about burning it out before it's become anything.
Exactly. Just as we close, what would you say to the younger version of yourself?
That's a tough one. I don't know. Enjoy the ride more. Like, don't take it too seriously. Unless your job is saving lives, your job isn't saving lives. At the end of the day,
I love that.
Like it's so simple, isn't it? Like, what's going to happen in the worst case scenario? Like, what? Someone be upset with you. Someone do this. You have to make a change in your life because it's not what you want to do. Like, don't sweat it. something's going to happen off the back of it. Something's going to come out of the back of it. We never know what the next chapter in our book is going to be. So don't be afraid to sort of dabble with a few chapters and experiment with what it is that you are going to do in life. I came back as a mature student, like, and then moved to London, like 30s. You know, it's always okay to do something different. And I think that people can get that fear factor of change and get a bit stagnated. And I think that if I just said to myself when I was a bit younger, like, well, I don't know. I think if you ask some people, they'll be like, no, you were always laid back. You were always pretty calm. But you know, I did used to sort of, I did used to sort of think that, you know, there was so much pressure to do well and everything like that. And now I don't see the pressure to do well. All I see is a responsibility to take care of others, you know, and to actually believe that, you know, if you can do something kind with your day. So that whole exponential growth thing that you see people write about a lot, like, you know, this 1% better, 1.0.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, that's true in so many ways. Like, if tomorrow you do one extra thing, like, you know, tiny little kindness act, like tomorrow, then that happens. Then the next day you do another extra thing, and it starts bouncing off of people and what have you. I think that, yeah, let's stop focusing in on what we have to do to live our lives and actually just bringing our lives to what we have to do, you know. So in workplace, just, you know, be more human. Like, everyone is in there doing the same thing. Just relax and yeah, I mean, there are going to be people in there that are just moody, but isn't that the same in life? Isn't that the same in life? You know, but
exactly.
You're not gonna fix your people problems by, you know, chucking everything around and moving stuff. You need to really sort of invest in that kind of safe space. And yeah, I think that's what I probably would have gone into leadership a lot younger. I think that I've realized that helping people is probably where, like, I want to be, for sure. So, like, say I was to take a job elsewhere after this, I wouldn't even know for sure if it would be, you know, leading like a hardcore data division or something like that. You know, I could even see like something where it's just more about the people coaching and taking care of people, which is a big change because I have been obsessed with data all my life. I just now sort of see it in everything that we do. I just see it all in, you know, behaviors, interactions, desires, you know, plans for the future. It's all, you know, mathematics and data, you know. Whatever you want to do, whether you want to save money, whether you want to travel, whether you want to do this, it's all numbers, it's all data, you know. So just trying to that's the next step for me is taking my leadership skills to the next level rather than my data skills. With my data skills, I know I'm comfortable with any tool at any part of the pipeline, wherever it is, you know, the full life cycle. If I have to do that job, give me a week and I'll be fine. No worries. Like, you know, I'll duck on there. But yeah, I think for me now, I'm not saying I'll be an expert, by the way. just I'd be comfortable enough to sort of play my part in a team. But yeah, for me now, I think that it's the leadership that I certainly want to keep exploring and, you know, keep working with people like I've got in my team that are just absolutely awesome. You know, the reward is just some of the feedback that they say, and even better is when I see them branching off with their own ideas to go out and support other people. You know, I set up this thing we call Skull Sessions, as you know, my team's Team Viking. So we set up these Skull Sessions, which are like 15-minute informal coffee catch-ups where they reach out to other people and stuff. And you know, like they've taken in a life of their own. You know, I've seen like little pockets of people going and meeting up with people from other teams and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's really. I don't think that any manager can sit there and give guidance on how to manage. I think that you can only know how to manage once you're in there with the team and you take that team into account, all of their needs, all of their expectations, and there. Anyone that thinks that management is like a carbon copy blueprint that you can take, oh, that person was a good manager over there. Like, I don't think it's like that. I think that it's whether that manager over there, they could have just got lucky. It might not have been their mindset that actually like created that sort of positive pocket. I think that you need everybody wanting to genuinely help each other, and that's where I've been really lucky landing the team that I got in Sky. I've every single time one of them's needed something, they've pulled together, and you know, if I'm part of making that more possible, great. But I'm really happy to be part of that team.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing and for your thoughts. And just thank you for being your authentic self and a great leader.
No worries, mate. Thanks for the additional feedback. I really appreciate it. If what I do helps, that's great to hear, because that's what I'm after. And yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me along.
Absolute pleasure. And thank you guys so much for listening. And we will catch you on the next episode.